To discuss this, I'm joined now from Karachi by Jibran Nasir. He's a lawyer, civil liberty activist, politician and blogger. And from Islamabad, we have Tariq Pirzada. He's a security and political analyst. Gentlemen, thank you both for being with us. Tariq Pirzada, first to you. Now, we've all seen the video of this brutal crime. We've had the conclusion of the trial today, and yet some of those who've been acquitted are now being vaunted as heroes. Why is that taking place?
Number one, let me say very frankly that it has happened after a long time that a case of this nature has been disposed of expeditiously. I think on the face of it, justice has been done. The principal culprit has been sentenced to death, and the other accomplices and abettors, they have been sentenced to 25 years of prison. So on the whole, I think it is a satisfactory result.
You sidestepped the question there, Tariq. Tariq, you sidestepped the question there. 26 were acquitted, and for many, those guys are now coming off as heroes. Why is that happening?
Okay, the reason is this, that, you know, when a case as a lawyer, I can tell you, when a case goes to the court, everything gets decided based on the facts and the records available to the court that is presented to it by the prosecution and the other side. Now, in this case, those 26 who were released, they were not released for any particular reason. The court simply found that there was not sufficient evidence available or produced against them. And that was the reason. But there is a good news that the provincial government of that province, which is the KPK, they have decided to go into appeal against the acquittal of these 26 people.
And before I bring you in, Jibran, final attempt at this, Tariq. Now, some of those 26 who've been acquitted have also said that they would kill again, they'd take law into their own hands if something like this came up again. Let's not forget that Mashal had not blasphemed. Now, these guys, some of these 26 who've been acquitted, said they would kill again in terms of this blasphemy law. Why are they being vaunted?
No, I don't disagree with you. All I'm saying is the court has to decide the case based on the evidence available to them or produced before them. So that is the case, and this is one reason you partly referenced to that there are certain documents probably or certain of evidence available or certain facts of law are also available that the provincial government has decided to take the matter to the higher court. So I am not disappointed by the result.
OK, Jibran, dig into this for me if you can. The point I was trying to draw out there was the mindset that once a brutal killing like this happens with a mob, some of the guys who get away with it say they'll do it again. How does that mindset generate itself, and what can be done to try and stop that sort of thing happening in future?
Well, you see, there's always two ways to look at a situation, and in an ideal world, this was an open and shut case from the beginning, given the vast radiographic evidence and the fact that all the top intelligence agencies of Pakistan were tasked to investigate the matter by the Apex Court of Pakistan. But when you take into account the social, political and religious realities, which we must, this decision is a welcome verdict. And for that, the credit must go to the police officers, the investigation team, and the members of the prosecution. We must look at it in the context of how in Pakistan religious sentiments are exploited for political and monetary benefits. We must look into the fact that Mashal Khan was a victim of false allegations of blasphemy because he was trying to expose corruption within the university. Now, we also have to see that very recently, a killer of a former governor of Punjab, Salman Taseer, the killer Mumtaz Qadri, a convicted terrorist, has also been turned into a hero by fringe forces looking to mainstream the narrative through threat of violence. So in that context, yes, our present is tainted by the darkness of our past, but this decision is hopefully a step towards a brighter future. Now, when you talk about why the rally took place, why those murderers are being celebrated, or those acquitted are being celebrated, and they are saying that we did commit the murder and we will do it again, this is a war of narratives, and narratives require not just court decisions. That alone cannot be a deterrent. We are looking towards legal, political, social, and educational reforms. And countries struggle for decades to change narratives, only to realize that it is a perpetual pursuit, and who better to understand that than your audience in the Middle East, in Turkey, in US, and in India.
Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned the word reforms there. There have, of course, been some discussion of the reforming of laws. I mean, It was a case that has concluded. Someone has been found guilty and will be sentenced to death. Are you happy with the way this case has played out? And also, are you happy with the blasphemy laws as they currently are structured?
As I mentioned, that in the context of our political and social realities, this is a welcome decision, and that rally of those acquitted, where they are glorifying terrorism, is an unfair representation of the Pakistan society. The vast majority of Pakistan have had their sympathies with the family of Mashal Khan since day one and are still hopeful for further justice as the provincial government looks towards filing appeal in the matter against the acquittals.
Okay, Tariq Pirzada, let's just take this a little bit wider. I'm interested in where you think any blame may well lie with the university here. Now, some members of the university staff were involved in the killing here. There have, of course, been criticisms of the investigation, but do the university have something to answer here in terms of not knocking down the false, proved to be false, claims of blasphemy committed by Mashal Khan?
Here is what it is. Since we know the facts of the case in detail, the issue was really not the blasphemy itself. The issue was personal hostility, personal, animus, the elements of discord within the, university environment between these groups. So that issue of blasphemy was actually used to take to destroy the life of that young man.
But
so
how dangerous?
That is the context.
Yeah, absolutely. But how dangerous is it?
That is the context.
How dangerous is it
sorry,
that blasphemy law be used as a weapon to try and destroy, as you say, the lives of the young man?
Because it is a convenient weapon. And this is why, I've been appearing on shows and I've been talking about it, that there has been a positive development in Pakistan, that now we have certain cases that have been, in which a verdict has been rendered by the courts, that you just cannot abuse the blasphemy laws. You cannot file a false FIR to get somebody involved. And if that happens, you will be dealt with a strong judicial hand. And this is why, and this was in the paper. This was the day this thing happened. The facts came out pretty fast. The media is very active in Pakistan. Then everybody, even the ordinary people in Pakistan, knew that the issue of blasphemy was primarily used to take personal revenge, and nothing more than that. And this is also one more reason that after this sentence was announced, no riots took place, no discord happened in the news media on this issue. Everybody took a sigh of relief, because apparently while the blasphemy laws were simply used by the killer to defend himself, that was not the fact. Those were not supported by, that was not supported by the facts on the file.
Absolutely not. Jibran, do you take that argument that perhaps in the aftermath of this case, the message will come down to people across Pakistan that they can't weaponize the law of blasphemy?
The law isn't without its faults and lacunas, and that has been extensively debated both nationally and internationally regarding Pakistan. However, we must also look into administrative measures or lack thereof, which I believe also embolden vigilantism. Pakistan is a young nation where half the population is around under the bracket of 30, and to ensure a progressive society, we have to focus on various facets, primarily beginning with instilling a notion of civic responsibility among citizens, where we respect each other's constitutional fundamental rights, which includes the right to a fair trial and due process, right to life, protection from torture. Furthermore, also ensuring from the state's end that rule of law is not made a mockery of, and it's equally applied everywhere. But like I said, political and monetary benefits are actually often behind when such allegations are being used. But the state now, when reflecting on this, when still fighting this case, has to take into account that on that fateful day, on 13th April, two kinds of futures were lost in Pakistan. One was of Mashal Khan, the student who became the victim, and the other was of those 60-odd students who, from students, rather than becoming a brighter prospect for Pakistan, became criminals and murderers. and why those young minds were being preyed on and who was preying on them, and why isn't enough administrative measures being put in place to ensure that hate speech isn't used, to show that religion is exploited, and to ensure that those people who use false allegations of blasphemy are taken to task. And for that matter, legal reforms is a must in Pakistan.
What kind of legal reforms do you want? There must be hate speech laws. Of course, in Pakistan, there are laws against blasphemy. What kind of legal reforms do you think would work?
I have something to add on this.
When it comes to hate speech in Pakistan, when it comes to hate speech in Pakistan, the authority or the right to file or register a criminal case is with the state, the provincial or the federal government, not with the citizen. So, of course, the onus falls on them. But when you talk about false allegation, we, of course, have laws that you cannot mislead a court by giving false evidence about someone who may or may not have committed blasphemy. But we need further laws to ensure that social media or electronic media or print media or, for example, university campuses are not allowed to exploit sentiments, to agitate people, to incite violence, and to that extent, enough measures are not in place within our legal system to ensure that does not happen. However, like I said, this decision is a step in the right direction, but we are far away from our destination. Hopefully, we'll carry on this journey.
Tariq Pirzada, make your point.
Yeah, actually, there's a very strong law against incitement on the issue of religion and inciting one community against another, inciting any person against the religion of any second person. That law is a part of the Pakistan Penal Code. It's a very strong law. The issue in Pakistan is actually not the laws themselves. It is the enforcement of the laws. It is the interpretation of the laws by the courts and the lawyers on both sides. Once we get used to effectively enforcing our laws, and the system becomes more and more responsive to the need against those people who use incitement as a means of revenging somebody, taking revenge, or getting somebody hurt. So this law is very powerful at the present time in the context of inciting the religious feelings, especially based on blasphemy laws or other excuses. That is not allowed under the law at the present time. And as a matter of fact, as I said earlier, these days, if you get a false FIR, first information report filed before the police, and it turns out that it was false, very strong action is now recommended to be taken by the law, against those people.
Final point then to you, Jibran Nasir. How do you feel looking forward? Sorry, sir, let me put the question. How do you feel looking forward then, in light of what we've seen over the past year or so in terms of Pakistan? Of course, the spread of social media, the spread of rumours will, of course, continue. With that in place, you will get false rumours in place, and this thing may happen again.
See, this wasn't the first case where blasphemy allegations were falsely applied with malintentions, and this may not be the last if we continue to act like firefighters. We need to look at the bigger picture, the social, political, religious, economic, and educational phenomena, as I mentioned earlier. Pakistan has made a lot of sacrifices, dedicatedly fighting against terrorism and the hate narrative, laying down a lot of life of our civilians and our soldiers, and we cannot allow some fringe forces to use religion, to use blasphemy laws, to use religious sentiments in our streets to again take members of our youth, to take a section of society towards that hate narrative. The citizens, the civil society at large, the government and the state together and the judiciary are working to form and build a narrative. But like I said, it's going to be a struggle which is going to take decades. Countries around the world have come round circle back to struggling with racism, xenophobia, Islamophobia, and other kinds of ills. And in Pakistan, the struggle is the same. And we, I believe, on a global perspective, are joined in this struggle.
Absolutely. Okay, Jibran Nasir, Tariq Pirzada, gentlemen, thank you both very much for your time.